Dave, you gotta start the meeting. Okay, it's Thursday, Wednesday, 27th. We'll start the meeting. Call to order. Do a roll call. So we have Jim Schultz.
Here.
Beth Garrett. Ben Connors. Gary Ader.
Here.
Dave Mindel.
Here.
Charlie Ortman. Here. And Jerry Richardson. Okay, we do have a quorum. Introductions. Mary Jo, you want to take this one?
Sure. We're gonna do introductions because we have a couple new board members. So first of all, thank you for joining the Land Conservation Committee. I'm Mary Jo Gingras, the County Conservationist for the Land and Water Conservation Department.
My name is Seth Hackbarth. I'm the engineering technician for land conservation.
Tim Micka, egg technician for Ashland, Bayfield, Iron, Douglas County.
Good morning, Scott Keevan, Land and Water Specialist with Ashland County LWCD.
Us too. I'm Beth Garrett, newly elected to the county board from District 1, and I'm a grant writer for the Bad River Tribe.
Charlie Ortman, citizen rep for the Land Conservation Committee, and I'm retired Air Force and a former welder and retired full-time political activist now. Thank you.
Charlie's also on the city council, so right, and a former county board member.
Jim Schultz, County Supervisor. Dave Mindel, District 20 Supervisor.
Thank you, everyone. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, we'll move to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Ortman. Is there a second?
Jim will second.
Second by Mr. Schultz. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of the minutes for February 11th. Any questions, comments, revisions?
Move to approve.
Approval of Mr. Ortman. Second by Mr. Mindel. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, election of chair. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I make a motion to nominate Jim Schultz.
Do we have any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
I'll make a motion to close nominations and unanimously approve Jim Schultz as our chair.
Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Ortman, second by Mr. Mindel. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you also. Moving on, we'll be going to the LCC. Excuse me, vice chair. We need to elect the vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Charlie. Motion has been made to nominate Dave Mandel for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations?
I'll make a motion to close nominations and unanimously appoint Dave as our vice chair.
Motion has been made to nominate Dave Mandel for vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right.
Excuse me, was there a second? Okay. Thank you.
Then we will move on to LCC appointment of citizen representatives.
Okay, so we have the Northwest area, that's the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association. So there are quarterly meetings at that association that usually take place either at the state conference in the Dells or in Hayward, of which we have a meeting coming up on June 10th. So we do need a staff representative and an LCC representative. Currently, Charlie Ortman is our LCC representative and I serve as the staff representative. And I see that is actually repetitive on our agenda.
Charlie,
I'd be happy to continue to serve in that position if the body sees fit.
I agree with Charlie's volunteerism. So then we can move on.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are we on item B?
B.
Okay, so that is appointment of citizen reps. So right now, Charlie serves as a citizen representative on the Land Conservation Committee, as well as Gerald Richardson. So at this point, we need to appoint our citizen representatives, and then we will go on to item C and appoint the Wisconsin Land and Water representatives. Sorry about that. So we're going to need a motion to appoint our citizen representatives, Charlie Ortman and Gerald Richardson.
Make a motion. Appoint both of those. B.
Correct. On item B, LCC appointment of citizen representatives. We have two. And Charlie Ortman and Gerald Richardson both serve as citizen representatives on this committee. So we're not appointing an alternate, we're appointing two citizen reps.
Motion has been made and seconded for the appointment of citizen representatives. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, he's served on the committee for about 18 years. And the last time we elected, I asked him if he wanted to continue serving as, he's a farmer, so he serves as a farm representative. And he's been active in this committee for almost 2 decades.
Then we will need a motion, or the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the citizen representatives signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll go on to C, LCC appointment of Northwest area, whatever that is.
Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association. This is our state association that oversees all land conservation departments in the state. And we meet with them quarterly. Typically, it's in Hayward. Except in March, we meet at the state conference. And we need to have a representative from the LCC and an alternate from the LCC. I am the staff. So that's going to be the next agenda item, the Land and Water Conservation Department. Currently, Charlie is the representative on the committee and George Bousset was our alternate. So that means if Charlie cannot attend one of the meetings, then the alternate would. And I would like this person, whoever this person is, I would expect them to attend our state conference, which would be next March.
Any volunteers?
Is it best if they come from the committee or is it best if they don't come from the committee? So we have one more person.
They have to be on this committee.
Okay. Well, I'll volunteer to be the alternate if Charlie can't make it.
Charlie,
When is, it's March, I can't remember the exact date for the yearly conference. Right? But you want both of us to go if possible?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
I mean, I would like to have a representative from our committee.
okay. I thought you were just suggesting that both of, I was gonna say Beth's pretty busy, but
I mean, if someone wants to be the representative, but they never want to attend the quarterly meetings or the conference, then I would suggest that not be our representative.
okay. The quarterly meetings, so I just want Beth to know what the commitment of the meetings are. I always go to the conference and you're certainly welcome. But that wouldn't be a requirement. The
Right.
quarterly meetings are in, not, where are the quarterly meetings? Rice Lake?
Usually Hayward,
Hayward.
and they're always virtual as well.
Okay, so if you could go to those,
Mm. Yeah.
all right. Well, I'll nominate Beth then, if that's what we need to do. Or whoever made the motion nominate me and Beth.
I'll make the motion to nominate you two as the representatives. You as the primary and Beth as the alternate.
Jim will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to nominate Charlie as chief and Beth as alternate. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. LWCD appointment of Northwest Area Representative Ed alternate.
So this would be the Land and Water Conservation Department staff appointment to that Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association, and then a staff alternate. And I typically serve as the representative unless someone else would like to.
You need an alternate too, right?
Yeah,
So you and,
and who was our alternate? Okay. Scott, do you still want to be alternate?
Yeah.
Okay,
You need a motion?
yes, please.
Motion that we nominate Mary Jo and
Scott,
Scott as the alternate.
second,
motion has been made and seconded to nominate Mary Jo and Scott. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, the tough stuff is done. Now the fun stuff. Ellie, if you want to go ahead and bring up the annual report. Did anybody need a paper copy? Okay. And for the annual report, we're actually going to start on the second page of your packet. Ellie, the map of Wisconsin. So this shows the state of Wisconsin divided into our regions for the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association. Wisconsin Land and Water is housed in Madison. They Matt Kruger is our state director, and he works with the different regions throughout the state. We have 8 different regions, and we serve as the Northwest area. So the Northwest area is what we just elected representatives for. We have 11 counties, and we meet with those counties quarterly to talk about issues that affect the North, resolutions that we might want to make, share ideas among staff, and plan regional events such as our youth poster and speaking competition, summer camps, and things like that. Ellie, if you want to move on to the next page.
Mary Jo, I think Beth has a question.
Yes.
Just curious if this is done by watershed or by population, or, how they came up with the divisions, do you know?
It's not done by watershed. The only state in the nation that utilizes watersheds is Minnesota. So they create their soil and water conservation districts based on watershed action plans. That's a great question. They try to divide us up geographically by similar number of counties.
I see. Thanks.
Yeah, and you see like Dane County or Milwaukee area, they have fewer counties. Their population is greater. But for the most part, they try to keep about the same number of counties. The rest of this packet basically talks about what the difference is between a land conservation committee and a land conservation department. So the land conservation committees have specific roles versus the land conservation department has specific roles. And the conservation programs are divided across the state, and they address a variety of resource types of issues. Our primary goals and responsibilities are controlling soil erosion, managing manure and nutrient applications, protecting important land areas, managing and protecting groundwater, controlling construction site erosion control and stormwater runoff, lake, river, and shoreline protection, forest resources, restoring wetlands, and controlling invasive species. And as you guys are aware, every county in the state has different natural resource issues and concerns. And those issues and concerns at the county level really are what drive the goals of the department. So every county in Wisconsin creates a land and water resource management plan. And we adopted our plan in 2019. The next time that we will update that plan will be in 2029. Chapter 92, Ellie. Chapter 92 is a Wisconsin soil and water conservation and animal waste management law. That is the main chapter that provides legislative authority for land conservation committees and departments to carry out our roles. It allows us to establish goals and standards to protect soil and water resources. This chapter is what provides our cost sharing and our technical assistance that we administer with landowners across the county. It also requires us to have our soil and water conservation resource management plan. Next page.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
could you just briefly address the FPP too, unless you're doing it somewhere later in here?
Farmland preservation is a That's okay. We also are required by law to have a farmland preservation plan in each county. So this is the plan that we just revised and adopted last year. That's a 10-year plan. that develops goals, actions, and activities to help protect farmland throughout Ashland County. Farmland preservation is also part of our state statutes. Tim, do you remember what statute that falls under? 50 point. I'm forgetting what statute right now that falls under. Okay. Statutory roles, responsibilities of the Land Conservation Committee. Land Conservation Committee is responsible to prepare and implement our land and water resource management plan. They also work with public participation in planning and evaluating soil and water conservation programs. So those are all of the programs that we administer through our department. And then they also follow the procedures through the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection to receive funding through our soil and water resource management program. So that Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection is the state agency that administers funding for staff and support of our department, as well as our conservation cost-sharing assistance that we provide technical assistance to landowners on erosion control practices. DATCP also provides the segregated funding for nutrient management practices, writing the nutrient management plans with private landowners throughout our county. And then on the next page, there is a series of training videos on Wisconsin Land and Water's website. So this is a great refresher. The website is listed there. Many of these videos are short training videos on Chapter 92. What is it? What is Wisconsin Land and Water? They talk about who their association is and what their role is. There's some advice from county conservationists on there, tenured land conservation committee members, and then a lot of other topics on the grant program. There's trainings that go on throughout the year. A lot of them are virtual trainings, so that's a great way to get refreshed or learn about new information. But that website is an excellent resource for you. Land conservation departments. This basically talks about the role of the county employees. Chapter 92 also talks about the powers that LCD staff may exercise and the powers of the land conservation committees. Basically, the staff serves as the committee's implementation mechanism. The LCC has the authority to set policy and create programs, and the staff is the entity that implements those programs. Yes. Okay.
So is it kind of a shorthand way to think about it is that you all deal with ag lands and productive lands and waters in the way that the DNR kind of protects. And I know the DNR is organized differently, but the wildlands and it looks like you have some authority for enforcement. Mm-hmm. But instead of going through DNR, you go through more like DATCP, you go more through, I don't know, I'm just trying to think about how you interact with, say, NRCS, and they would interact with what, EPA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have the federal government, EPA, we have the state government, and we have county government. And DNR is the main permitting authority of the state. So there are statewide permits. There are also county level permits. So we do have an agricultural ordinance in Ashland County that would require some farmers to seek a permit for certain practices, such as building a new manure storage pit. So we do have some permitting authority and enforcement authority underneath our agricultural ordinance. But then in addition, we still have to seek DNR approval on many of the types of projects that we work on, especially if it's in a waterway that is a permitted waterway.
Okay.
So we work very closely with DNR on a lot of our conservation projects. We actually apply for the permit on projects that require a DNR permit on behalf of the landowner, because we would submit a engineered construction plan that we design. And then DNR would still permit those types of projects. If there are larger agricultural issues, like a non-compliance issue that we are not able to seek remediation on, then we would move up the scale to the DNR. But historically, we try to work with the landowners on a voluntary compliance to keep them in compliance with state agricultural rules before we would ever seek DNR authority. In the case of NRCS, they are an equal conservation partner to us, but they are the federal arm and we're the county arm. So landowners are able to enroll for programs through NRCS, and then they can also enroll in our cost share program. So NRCS would provide a set amount of cost sharing, and then whatever the remaining amount is, our cost share program would reimburse 70% of that remaining. So landowners could get more bang for their buck on conservation projects. But NRCS is a federal program, and there is a longer waiting period, or there's a stricter ranking process for landowners to get enrolled into that program. And sometimes landowners decide not to enroll in the federal NRCS program, and they seek cost share funding simply through our department. So we don't have 100% participation in both programs piggybacking all the time. It just depends on the individual landowners. But we do work very closely with our NRCS office here in Ashland.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Charlie.
So the LCC would be looking at any place in the county, any land, water, anywhere that might be experiencing degradation of any sort, if it was brought to their attention. Some areas you focus on all the time, just by what, precedent. So farmlands, traditional big acreages that do different chemistries on their soil and whatnot. But say, I was spreading too much fertilizer on my lawn, and it was brought to the attention of LCC, and I know you've put out like flyers regarding what the dangers of that are. Would that be something that one could, and this is just to show that the county wants to keep all the county land safe. You would address that in some way or another, but you might not have any legal enforcement arm, correct?
Correct. So we don't only work on ag lands. We work on lakes and river projects. We do shoreline habitat restoration work. We will work with lake associations on providing education or grant opportunities if a lake has a concern about invasive species or some other issue. We also do quite a bit of work on early detection, sampling on lakes, and we're going to get more into this in our land and water, in our annual report. But we also work with the city of Ashland on stormwater issues, stormwater overflow. If there's landowners that have impervious surfaces or a lot of runoff on their property in the city, we can assist the city planning staff with making recommendations. We can work on forest management plans. So it's not just agricultural land. We address all soil and water resource issues throughout the county.
Thank you.
And then the next page is a list of acronyms. So this is something that is important for all of us. We do have acronyms on the agenda for this meeting because otherwise that agenda would be 2 pages long. But typically I try to avoid using acronyms, but these are the most widely used acronyms that would affect the work that we do in our department. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the annual report. We're going to try to move through this fairly quickly because it's lengthy. So the annual report covers all of the work that we did in 2025. Every year we create an annual report for the committee, and I also distribute it through the county board. And this basically gives people an information about who we are and what we do. So some of the most important information that you may be interested in are some of the finances. Last year we received almost $155,000 from the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, DACAP, to fund staff and support of our department. We also received an additional $50,000 from DACAP that we utilized for cost share with private landowners. However, last fall, some of those practices were not able to be implemented due to contractor constraints or weather constraints. So we carried over almost half of that money to this year, and that will be applied to landowner projects this year, in addition to this year's share of our $50,000 in DACAP money. In the gray box on that page, we received an additional $292,000 in other types of grants. These would be Great Lakes Restoration grants. These would be National Association of Conservation District grant for our ag program. These would also be state DNR grants. And then we had a total of 4 best management practices installed on private lands. And typically that number is usually doubled. We usually implement 7 or 8 different practices, but once again, due to our contractor and weather constraints last fall, we had to carry over some of those projects into this calendar year. And the state does allow us to carry over cost share funding for 1 year, but it's essential to get it spent in that following year. The next page is a budget summary. So that talks about the non-competitive funding sources that we receive. The first one there is our largest non-competitive grant. That is an application though, so we still have to apply for it every year. That's our Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection Staff and Support Fund. Then we have our Wildlife Damage Program. That money is money that we use for farmers that receive damage from deer, bear, geese, elk, and turkeys. And then we have our Nutrient Management Grant. That's the grant that we utilize with farmers to write nutrient management plans so they can monitor where their manure is being spread and how much nutrients they're applying to their farmlands. We have our annual tree and shrub sale that generates some revenue. We have miscellaneous revenue that comes in from utilizing one of our vehicles. So we rent it to our own ag program. We have a donation through our tree and shrub sale. And then we have our no-till planter. This is off. I see this printed wrong. Down below, we have our competitive grants. That's our Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. That's the flood management project that we're working on in the Marengo River watershed. We have our National Association of Conservation Districts grant that funds our agriculture program that we provide technical assistance to farmers in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron counties. We utilized a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant last year to replace 2 large culverts on stream crossings. And those projects were initiated through the U.S. Forest Service. There was culverts entering U.S. Forest Service lands in the town of Ashland. And yeah, 2 of them in the town of Ashland. So we worked with the Forest Service. I wrote the grant to fund those projects. The Forest Service did the culvert design, and our highway department implemented the projects themselves. And then we have 2 different Wisconsin DNR grants that fund our Clean Boats, Clean Waters boat landing monitoring work and our lake monitoring program. And Scott will talk a little bit more about those later on. And then there's a pie chart down there at the bottom that just shows the distribution of those funds. Okay, I'm gonna switch to Seth, and he's gonna talk about our cost share projects implemented last year.
So last year, we implemented 3 different projects, livestock fencing, well decommissioning, and an access road. Then, as mentioned earlier, the remaining funds were carried over into this year for another substantial access road and bigger farm project that has multiple components to it. So the carryover funding has actually already been spent. They just finished the project last week. So we're actually, they went over the carryover amount. So some of the funds from this year have already been allocated. So the carryover balance from the previous pages has already been spent. And that'll be on my staff report as well. So those were the projects, about 6,700 linear feet of fencing, 700 feet of access road, and a well decommissioning. Some of the pictures are off there. The well decommissioning is listed below the picture, and the access road is listed above the picture, but pretty self-explanatory there. Those projects are. Mm-hmm. So the livestock fencing, it's in an area where when the cattle and horses were not secured, they frequently ran down to the river nearby to grab some water. So it was important to contain them there within the property so they're not going into the woods and nearby streams. The well decommissioning, that was just sitting in an old field. So that's a direct conduit to groundwater susceptibility if those aren't sealed properly. And there was an old structure that was kind of just falling down around it. So that got sealed up with bentonite chips and abandoned properly. So there isn't any risk of contamination anymore. And the access road, that's a frequently heavy use area where the farmer traverses cattle and equipment. So it was obvious that there was soil erosion year round happening there. So that's why all these things, although they're fairly simple practices and straightforward, they do still have conservation benefits.
And did the landowners come to you by and large and say, I have this issue, or was it something that we found and said, let us help you solve this problem? Or
Yep, all of those projects were voluntary. Occasionally we do have a non-compliance issue where we have to address that, whether that be someone from the public comes to our department and says, hey, I don't think this is the right use of management on their land. But those are pretty far and few between. We like to try to address the problems on a voluntary basis so it doesn't become a bigger compliance issue. If, say, the access road and fencing projects were just left alone until they were a substantial need, With compliance issues, it's gonna end up costing us more money than it would upfront to kind of address it. While, yes, there is a resource concern, but it's not to that significant amount where it's gonna cost a ton of money, and then you still have a good working relationship with those landowners. So hopefully they implement conservation on their own and with you in the future.
Thanks. And then I guess I have a question for you, the chair, Jim. And that is it, I guess I've been addressing my questions over here. Would you like to be the person that how formally are you going to be running the meetings? Would you rather I addressed them to you and you said, yeah, go ahead, or what?
I guess I have no preference, whatever, works and, keeps the meeting going on time. Yeah.
Okay,
Sometimes I get involved playing with this, computer here, so I don't see, when
Okay.
somebody, has the question. So no, feel free. Yeah, thanks for asking.
okay, thank you.
Charlie.
I do have one other question about the budget. It, I'm assuming that's the 2025 final budget, because it says at the bottom that it's the final numbers. And I'm just confused that we got 2 grants for Clean Boats and Clean Waters, which actually was more than $20,400. And yet on this budget, it looks like, there's this shortfall. So I'm a little confused by the budget, to be honest with you. And I don't know why there's $838 and $750 floating up there with nothing. And maybe it's just a problem with how things printed, but all I need to know is this grant funding that you're talking about for revenues and everything else is made up with your actual county budget? Or what am I looking at here?
Correct. So the $838, I see that is off. I didn't realize how this printed. The amount for the $3,744, that should not be in there. The 3,744, that was left over from the previous year, and I failed to delete that cell. So everything would be moved up.
I see.
If you strike a line
Okay, got
through
it.
the 3,744
Okay, got
in
it.
both the revenue and the expense, everything else would move up. Now, on the bottom part, as far as the revenue, it's almost 500,000 in revenue, and the rest of that would be levy.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay, we are gonna move on to and to answer your question, Beth, with the Clean Boats, Clean Waters and the Wisconsin Lake Monitoring Program, those grants only partially fund the program. Some of our grants are 100% reimbursement. Others are only fund the program partial. So then we utilize levy dollars to fill the void, whether it's staffing. So for example, the Wisconsin DNR Clean Boat, Clean Water, we administer monitoring at boat landings in the summer. So we hire a summer technician to do that, which costs us about $20,000. And we receive reimbursement of $4,000 towards that program. So we utilize levy funding to administer that position. And then that summer technician, usually a college student, administers quite a bit of other work through our department as well throughout the course of the summer. All right, moving on to the Clean Boats, Clean Waters program. Scott?
Alrighty, yeah, as always, feel free to chime in with any questions that you might have. Just a couple highlights of the lake, excuse me, Lake Monitoring and Protection Network, as well as our Clean Boats, Clean Waters grants. So with that, we have just kind of a plethora of different activities, that fall underneath that. So kind of the main, if you boil it down to some of the main points, a lot of it is aquatic invasive species monitoring. I would say there's a huge invasive species control element to that. And then obviously the education itself is a huge component of that as well. So we have some of the main programs listed that are part of both of those grants. So we have, of course, Clean Boats, Clean Waters. We offer trainings, citizen lake monitoring. So working with folks from lake associations and people that live on inland lakes in Ashland County. You see a lot of our like control work. So there's a lot of that kind of boils down to purple loosestrife, yellow iris, garlic mustard, invasive knotweed, all kinds of different invasives. Some of those activities we lead on our own, and then a lot of times they're partner projects. So we work with our local Northwoods Cooperative Weed Management area very, very closely for invasive species, both control and education, and work with a lot of other partners as well. Glyphwick is a huge one. Definitely Bad River is a very important one. Wisconsin DNR, Weed Co-op, local counties, etc. CSC, also a lot of our aquatic invasive species monitoring data and results from 2025. So we had the inland waters that we monitored, as well as what was discovered or hopefully not discovered in each of those water bodies there. Yeah, that's kind of the main stuff. I could go on and on about that, but that's kind of the highlights at least. But yeah, I'll, as always, happy to answer questions about that.
And then Scott, you can move right into tree and shrub and poster and speaking too.
I got one question for Scott. Was that last year that they were gonna draw Day Lake down for some kind of issue? Was that invasive, or do you know anything? Can you comment on that? Did it happen?
Yes, absolutely. So that was not Ashland County. So U.S. Forest Service would be the main governing body, just because they own the land around it. So they would be in charge of the drawdown. When Ellie and I were there, it was quite a bit lower. So they had started the drawdown. I did reach out to them just to kind of see what their goals were as far as that, because they do draw it down somewhat regularly. It seems like every couple of years they do that. Kind of their rationale was mostly to create better habitat for fisheries. They referred to one kind of a aggressive aquatic plant. So after monitoring that, I think it was pretty obvious to Ellie and myself, there's a lot of, it's called large leaf pondweed. So they're trying to just kind of control the numbers for that. That's Day Lake is a huge fishing lake, especially Muskie's kind of a lake that you get tourists from all over the place coming to. So I think that was kind of their main goal, but that would be all Forest Service. We didn't, other than monitoring it for invasive species and looking at overall lake health, like blue-green algae, we didn't have anything to do with the actual physical drawdown.
And then a quick question. I see that both Fawn Lake and Trout Lake have somehow miraculously have no AIS detected. So what's your protocol there to try to hang on to those? I don't know those lakes, so are they accessed by others, or how have they managed?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So those ones don't receive nearly as much traffic as a lot of our other lakes. Of course, humans are the main culprit for the transfer of invasive species. So we do see that throughout our monitoring. The more, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the more access and human influence on a water body, the more susceptible it would be to invasive species. So these ones have quite a bit less human activity, and therefore there's no invasive species there. So that's, obviously our goal is really to the ones that, like our Butternut Lake that does have a lot of invasive species, making sure that we're, kind of putting up a shield and make sure that it's not escaping and going to other lakes. And then of course our inland waters that do not have any invasives, making sure that we're keeping them out of there. So yeah, really a kind of a multi faceted approach between monitoring, education, and then if it comes down to it, control.
Well,
And as far as protocol, do you want to talk about the signage and then also like early detection, like the landowner on English Lake that you worked with?
Yep, absolutely. So just a quick overview on that. As far as our actual monitoring protocol, so the Wisconsin DNR, it has kind of the general guideline for essentially any monitoring within the state of Wisconsin. So it doesn't really matter if it was, a professional out monitoring or if it was a citizen. There's different protocols. So we use Wisconsin DNR's standard aquatic invasive species early detection monitoring protocol, which was recently revised just this year. So generally speaking, depending on the size of the lake, when we're out there, we'll have about anywhere between like 5 to 10 search sites. So depending on water clarity and how far you can really see, we do a combination of rake tossing, getting in the water and doing snorkeling. We do a lot of visual surveys. We always hit kind of the hot spots. We like to hit things like beaches, campgrounds, boat landings. So again, it's that human component there. So those are kind of our search sites or target sites. And then we also make sure that we're meandering the whole entire lake. We don't want to just hit a couple random spots and call it good. We want to make sure that we're doing, a very thorough job. But the protocol is all through Wisconsin DNR, both from the professional side. And then Mary Jo mentioned like working with citizens. So this is becoming more and more common. We're getting a lot more phone calls and emails about from different citizens that live on any given water body. And they send me, pictures of, kind of this mystery plant that they might have found, which we love, absolutely love that. It means that they're engaged with their water body, and they're really the eyes and ears out of their water bodies. So it's wonderful to get that buy-in, and we're seeing it more and more. It's just kind of a snowball effect over the last few years, which is wonderful. And then we help them. We'll do site visits if there's something suspicious. Typically, we'll go out as soon as we can, and a lot of times they'll invite us to take the pontoon out or do like a site visit on the water, and we can identify whatever mystery plant or mystery mussel or snail or crayfish that they might have, and answer any questions and go from there. So yeah.
Yeah, and as far as lakes that do not have invasive species yet, we don't have any further protocol for protection. We basically post the landings with DNR signage to remind people to check their boats and gear. And we do that at every public landing, whether it's a drive-in access or a carry-in. And then we respond proactively for any requests of something that someone's uncertain of. And then in the case of like an early detection of a species, Scott would provide recommendations on how to eradicate it and heavily encourage people to try to remove what's there to prevent further spread. If there was a situation where we had a lake where an invasive plant was found, we would also have the authority and the expertise to be able to assist a group with writing a grant if we needed to do that. So.
All right, you're stuck with my voice for another couple more programs here. So Ashland County Tree and Shrub Sale, so I oversee that program. Yeah, so we have on any given year, we are in about our 30th year running the tree and shrub sale. So I see a lot of the facts from 2025. Those numbers are all a little bit higher for 2026 than 2025. Generally speaking, we have anywhere between about 165 orders like we did in 2025 upwards to this year we had just a shade over 200 orders. We over the years we've kind of switched from doing predominantly seedlings to mostly older transplants. So with that we're selling less overall trees by numbers, but kind of the hope of selling, these older trees that are a lot more developed with the hopes of having better success and survival rates. So one thing that I really want to emphasize is we take feedback from anyone that has ever ordered from us, and even if they haven't ordered from us, we're definitely take feedback. So really, we always like to say it's really it's not my sale, it's not Mary Jo's sale, it is really for the county, it's for northern Wisconsin. So we've as far as like our species, we want to be open to whatever folks that are purchasing it. They can always submit requests for new species. I think now we're up to about 25 or 26 different species that we offer. And we offer them at various price points as well, based upon age, if they're seedling or transplant, all kinds of different factors there. But it's always a kind of we want to make it nice and living, and always making it better every single year. So we're always open to that feedback from folks that order from us. Yeah, over the years, we've shifted a little bit more to more climate resilient species. That's one kind of big thing. That is directly from our land and water plans. We want to make sure that we're, focusing on not just the species that have thrived in northern Wisconsin in years past, but also, kind of looking forward to the future as well. So we're using a lot of data from the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science, NIACS is what their acronym would be, as well as the USDA Climate Hub as well. So we use a lot of their climate species projections for tree and shrub species, and use a lot of that information and data as part of our sale as well, and try to get more of those species, but also keeping, some of kind of the, I always like to say, like the local favorites, if you will, that have been hot sellers in the past too. So again, a little something for everyone.
Yeah, Ellie, do you want to talk about poster and speaking? Okay. Sorry, Scott.
So Scott also runs the program, the annual poster and speaking contest, and that is a contest that's from kindergarten to high school every year. And so we host our poster and speaking contest locally for all the Ashland County schools, and then the top winners at that move up to our regional. And then if they win from there, then they go to the state. And then if they pass state, then they go to the national contest. So we mainly get a lot of posters in Ashland County. Scott's done a really good job. Both him and I do some education. We, depending on the theme, we'll go do presentations so that we can get the students thinking about what they can write about or draw about, speak about. And so here are our winners from 2025. The theme was Home is Where the Habitat Is. And typically we get quite a few entries. It doesn't say the number on here of our entry. Oh, 104 posters in 2025. So that's quite a bit of posters, just collecting them from all the county schools. So Ashland, Butternut, Mellon, some homeschoolers also participate. It's a very thriving program up here.
Excellent. And you can see some of the posters out in the hallway, in the stairwell. So it was quite a task to get the county to allow us to post those. It took over a year. And we had quite a bit of feedback from the clerk's office. So if you have a chance to view those posters, check them out and appreciate them. And if you ever come to our office, we have a wall of fame. And we also post, how many do we have? Over a dozen?
Yeah, so we have, at our office, we have 16, and those are all first place winners, either at the local contest, area contest, and some, that have been even made it to state too.
And then these two have created a traveling display. So that moves to the visitor center. Eventually it will go to the library. And we found different places in Ashland to move a collection of a dozen posters. And then we switched new posters into that rotation based on the winners from the current year and into the future years. We've also made little note cards. So anytime that we have volunteers that help our department out, or we need to send a note to someone, we've made some of these into like basically little thank you notes. And we utilize them that way as well. Of course, with permission from the parents and the artist. Some days I don't even know. No, I'm kidding. Sanborn Avenue in the same building as the Overflow. So we're just south of Hugo's Pizza. It's a large commercial building and our door is immediately next to the Overflow. David, I don't think you've ever seen our office, have you? Yeah, so our doorway is right next to theirs. So if you're ever around town or want to stop by, I invite, we have an open door. Sure. Well, you should stop by sometime. Okay.
One super quick comment. We did partner up with the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center. They adopted not just a couple of our posters, but they adopted the whole entire collection, which was wonderful. They've been instrumental. They're super, super open to the idea. So if you go up to, it'd be like the third floor, back where there's a lot of like historical photos and they have other featured artists. So we have a big, basically a whole entire wall in there. So I know I've heard a lot of comments from folks that swing by the visitor center, and obviously you get, so many people going through the visitor center. So we get a lot of comments, a lot of good feedback from that. So just wanted to throw that in there.
All right, we're going to focus on some of our ag projects and programs now. So Tim, if you want to.
So the big thing that I guess on here is the nutrient management planning, and 23 producers have some type of nutrient management plan, and these have been over the years from, I don't know, I think it started in 2009. So, and we often update, the producer should be updating them every year, but we kind of monitor that as best we can. 7,000 acres, that's just Ashland County. And and there's lots more acres that needs to be put into nutrient management planning. So my position has been funded through the National Association of Conservation District grant. So we're in the process of working on the new grant. So the 40 acres has been interesting working with farmers and talking to them about it. I've had several calls this year. Farmers are wondering why they're getting $40 per acre. So it's almost like they think it's too good to be true. So, but it's been interesting. I had 3 farmers now ask me after they get their plan in place if they have to buy fertilizer in order to get their nutrients up to what the recommendations are. So there's been farmers like, well, I don't know if I want to do that because what you're going to pay me is not going to even come close to it. So, and that's not the case. So it's an incentive payment for them to keep it in cost share. Farm days, the field days, will be coming up this year again too. So now I got some, more information on a couple other farmers I can, plan field days for, and they're really good opportunities to connect farmers. I'm going to be doing them on Saturdays this year to try to hit a different group of guys, different farmers and stuff. So, and I know UW Extension has kind of the same thing. They have gatherings for people to participate in events, and theirs are all on Saturdays. So I thought it'd be good to have field days. So, and this is one of those things with the field days, is to keep encouraging farmers to connect, to learn new things, learn what other farmers are doing, and mostly just to connect as farmers. Like, a lot of farmers have lost that neighborhood community group of farming. So they don't have ways to connect as much anymore. So field days are really, really nice ways for them to connect. So
I would also encourage you, committee members, if you're interested in attending these field days, it's a great opportunity to learn and to meet our producers. So last year, we've only been doing this for a couple of years now. And Tim is going to host one in each county: Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron. So, and each county kind of has some different topics. One might focus on grazing. One might focus on a different type of livestock that the farmer has. So you don't have to attend the one only in Ashland County. So once he gets the date set and publishes them, I encourage you to attend as well if you're interested.
yes, sir.
Charlie, can you use your mic, please?
I apologize. Bad with this mic. So the point of nutrient management plans is to hopefully prevent certain chemistry from getting into the
Yep.
water. Okay, but why is that important? What are the bad things that happen?
Well, high nitrogen, you get high nitrates and stuff in the waterways, which is not good for anything. And then the phosphorus is increasing the algae blooms, and we're not having as biggest problems up here, but we're kind of the top of the states, and all the runoff that we have goes down to the Mississippi and into our lake too, of course. But nutrient management plans are to limit the amount of fertilizers or manure, so the plant can uptake them. So making sure that we're not putting on too much manure, so it's running off and the plant's not uptaking it, or phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium. So if we're putting too much of that on, it's running off. It's either ground runoff or going into the aquifers and stuff and into the ground. So that's the big thing with nutrient management, is we take whatever nutrients they have available, if it's manure or grazing, or if they're doing row cropping with their fertilizers, we make sure that they're not putting too much on and having that runoff problem. So does that answer the question?
Yes. Well, what is the benefit to the farmer of knowing how much to apply?
Yeah, so it's a huge benefit, because right now with fertilizer prices super high, like if they're putting too much on, basically they're wasting it, and it's just basically watching dollar bills float down the river. So, and then we have the added problem of trying to get those negative nutrients back out of the water systems. So it's a good benefit. And then the other really big benefit to the farmers is that, if they have low production in one area and high production, or low nutrients in one area and high nutrients in the other area, they can kind of move around where they're applying nutrients. So if they have like high phosphorus in one area, we can back them off in that field until we get to the recommendations, and we can, if they want to spend money on phosphorus, we can put it somewhere else. So,
And then my last question, in your field days, you've done, this was your second year?
It's my second year doing it. Yeah.
Did you find anything out from the farmers that surprised you that made you take action? Or look at something differently or new in your work in that?
That's a good question. Not really. I mean, usually we have conversations about nutrient management, how to do soil testing. We do some stuff on grazing. We talk about farmland preservation. One of the field days, the one in Bayfield County, the farmer out there is using some neat, he does all row crops, and he does a lot of neat, he's got this thing called Bushel, and it monitors the amount of rain through the area, like kind of an estimate of like his different fields, and then it monitors, like he inputs his nutrients into this program, kind of like the nutrient management program, and then he puts in his harvested amount, so he's able to kind of monitor like each field from every year, how much nutrients he's putting on, how much he's getting in return. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned. That was kind of neat that farmers are tech savvy. Yeah. So I think as we build more into the field days and farmers have more conversations, then there's more questions, and the more we can get guys on the fields and in these field days, it's farmers can talk and they like that. So, but I think actually the big thing is having farmers connect to other farmers that they're like, oh, I didn't know you farmed down the road type of thing. So I think that's a really neat benefit of it too. So, yeah.
So in summary, for the nutrient management, there's kind of three things to keep in mind. We're using, it's the science of soil. So we're actually testing, these farmers are testing their soil every 4 years. And then Tim uploads all of those soil samples into a computer system called Snap Plus. And we enter what crops are they growing? What is their rotation? Or what types of animals do they have? How many animals? So we're able to calculate the amount of manure. We're able to calculate the amount of nutrients taken out of the soil based on what they're growing. And we use the actual soil science, the soil test results, and that helps us figure out where do they apply manure? Do they actually need fertilizer, or do they produce enough manure? And if they utilize it efficiently, then they can save money. So we're using the science to help them save money. We want to make sure that the manure and the nutrients stay out of waterways. So we're using the system and the mapping to figure out where should we be spreading. And it is a state law. So in 2009, this became a law for producers. Anyone that is a producer that spreads manure or synthetic fertilizers by law is supposed to have a nutrient management plan. So we utilize the $40 per acre to write a plan with them. They receive a financial incentive that helps cover the costs of their soil sampling and their time to take the test, but we want to work voluntarily with them. And so that's why Tim said we still have a number of acres in the county that are not covered by plans. And our department has chosen not to enforce unless we receive complaints from landowners or we have a concern. So we're trying to work with the farmers voluntarily. And the more and more time that he spends enrolling new farmers and they share information with their neighbors, or we connect with new farmers, we're able to provide education opportunities and resources.
I gave you the Cliff Note version. I think the farmland preservation. Any other questions on nutrient management? No. Farmland preservation. I see that's the next one. Let me talk on that a little bit. So this is, I mean, it's a really good program. Not a lot of farmers are using it. You have to be in an ag enterprise area to use it. And we have an ag enterprise area in the Sanborn Marengo area. It goes into Bayfield County a little bit towards Mason. But you have to be in an ag enterprise area to enroll in farmland preservation. And I think we have 4 farmers enrolled in farmland preservation right now. So there's a lot of hesitancy right now still because the old farmland preservation program it tied farmers' hands a lot more. So the newer program's better, less of a commitment, 10-year only, and farmers can get $10 an acre that's enrolled as a tax credit. It's not a check to them, but it's a tax credit. So it said it's a great program. You have to be enrolled and have a nutrient management plan to be enrolled into farmland preservation. But yeah, and it's mostly to protect farmland from development. Yeah, that's the big thing. So it's a good program. I would love to see it be bigger than it is, but yeah, it just takes time. So I think if there was a higher incentive payment, I'm not sure, or higher tax credit, I don't know what that threshold is. I think it would be better. Maybe more guys would do it. And then there's farmers that are outside of the AEA that want to be enrolled into farmland preservation. They'll have, 40 acres, 100 acres, and they want to be enrolled, but they cannot be unless they're in an AEA. So it's one of the limiting things of the new farmland preservation program. So if there's enough farmers, you have to have 5 continuous farm owners to enroll and 2,000 acres to get into a new AEA. So, but yeah, so it's a good program, but not a lot of guys are using it. So I keep pushing it. Any questions with farmland preservation? What's that? Oh, it's a good question.
That's another 20-minute conversation. Main threats to farmland loss are development, application of chemicals, toxic chemicals, sewage, sludge, industrial waste, loss to other types of business operations, families not being able to make a living on agriculture, and changing weather patterns, events, climate change, intense rainfalls, droughts. There's a long list of threats to farmland. This program is basically here to try to preserve and protect the farmland that we do have in Ashland County and provide opportunity for families that want to continue agricultural enterprises.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this program itself, again, it's hard to get it to grow because it's not enough incentive for farmers to do it. It's a good idea. And I think there's, for sure, it's a benefit. I'm in farmland preservation, and it's a nice, I don't know, it's a really positive thing for me. It's something I'm already surrounded in my agricultural endeavors. But a lot of the bigger farmers that we'd like to get in, the guys that have got, a couple thousand acres, it's not worth their time and effort. So, I mean, because again, they have to abide by nutrient management compliance every year. They have to be watching their soil erosion around their farms. They have to be doing conservation practices. So it's, and the amount of money they would get in a tax credit, if you got a couple thousand acres, I mean, that's a fuel bill right now. It's not their time. The time isn't worth it. So the smaller farms, 50, 100, a couple hundred acres are the ones that kind of want to do it. But then there's people who own farmland, and you have to be generating income off of it. So if you have 80 acres and you want to enroll it in farmland preservation, you have to be able to generate like $6,000 of profit every year off of it, or 18,000 over the course of 3 years. So, and you can, like, if a farmer's renting it and they're planting corn on it, that money, that is the money they could use to prove that they're generating income on the farm. So they have to be able to prove that they're generating income, farm income, in a sense, in order to qualify for farmland preservation. So there's enough things attached to the program that makes it difficult enough for the average person. And again, like the people who want to get in it that kind of fit all the criteria, they're outside of the AEA. So it doesn't, they can't get in it. So it's, again, it's a great program, but there's too much that surrounds it to make it convenient and work. And for good reason too, I guess. I mean, you're getting some type of money money return. So you have to have some type of input, but it's just not enough for farmers. You gotta, well, whatever the money is. I don't remember what it is per size, but you have to have some type of income coming off of the property. So I don't remember if it's exactly 6,000 per 80 acres, but it's a chunk of money. So, but yeah, good question though.
Wildlife damage program. Last year, we turned that program back to the state. We had been administering it in-house for 25 years. But with the elk moving into Ashland County, the state would only reimburse us for 50% position, and our elk damage in Ashland County became exorbitant. So we were not able to manage we didn't have the capacity to manage the amount of damage claims. So we turned the administration, we handle the administration of the program, but the state Wildlife Services Organization took over implementing the damage component of that. So in 2025, we did have our elk biologist and wildlife damage specialist here at our last meeting, and they did an excellent job talking about the program last year. But we had 5 farmers enroll in the program. We had over $29,000 in damage claims that were made. And I failed to put the amount that we paid out there. But 8 bears were relocated. 49 deer were harvested through harvest tags. And then they utilized repellent on 40 acres, and that was for the elk damage. So the Wildlife Services Agency sprayed a farm down in Butternut to try to detour elk from feeding on his corn. And that was kind of an experimental project that worked fairly well last year. And then Tim will talk about no-till.
So the no-till program, I mean, has a great history on it, and it's been around a long time. The benefits for sure of the no-till is having this nice and convenient for farmers to use. And one of the big advantages of no-till is to keep cover on, so we don't have erosion problems. I mean, this is one of the big advantages of the no-till. And then you can, it's easy enough to get better stands of legumes and grasses into pastures. So it's interesting because looking through the years of the ups and downs, in 2020, we had a huge uptick in people using the no-till. And I think we all know what happened in 2020. So I think people are just wanting to do stuff and try things because we haven't had one that high again, but this year has been interesting getting the no-till out and about. And I've had a pile of calls and people interested in talking about it. So I'd call them back, get them all the information. The one day, I think last Monday or 2 Mondays ago, I had 3 people call me. I was talking to a guy about the no-till and another guy was beeping in to talk to me about the no-till. So it's just this weird, it's been pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden there's this huge uptick. And I just had a farmer plant 66 acres in it yesterday. So just randomly, like, so yeah, he was doing some stuff for NRCS. So there's one of those connections to NRCS. So, and I had another guy take it to down to Mellon, that's improving his hay land, you know, so it's super random. But yeah, so I think yeah, it's up and down. I think as it gets older, it's going to be more expensive to fix it. Just the repairs as like all of us, as the older we get, we're more expensive to fix the more we get used. So it's something I'm for sure monitoring. Like every time someone uses it, I kind of go through it, we grease it, make sure there's nothing broken on it. But yeah, I think is there any questions on the no-till? Yeah. You keep the biology going under the ground. You're not disrupting all the bugs and the worms underneath the soil. And then you prevent. So keeping that ground cover on, you're preventing soil erosion. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that took about twice as long as I was anticipating. So are there any final questions? All right. And as far as the wildlife damage there that I forgot that I didn't put the last numbers in, we had a total of we did have 2 claims in wildlife damage last year that were not eligible based on the landowner's preferences and the program requirements. So some of the requirements may require your land to be published as a hunting place or open for certain types of harvest. There are some requirements with that program. So 2 of the claims that were made did not actually get enrolled in the program because of the requirements. And then total damage that was actually appraised in the county was over $45,000. But the damage program caps an individual claim at $10,000. So we did have 2 farmers that had more damage than 10,000, and that happened to be from elk. And so one of our farmers had about $15,000 in damage and another had 19,000. So those 2 were capped at $10,000, and the actual amount paid out was what was shown here was $29,143. And what that also amounted to is that the elk in certain areas are causing substantial damage for producers. So it is causing the state to reconsider management of these animals. Do we need to consider relocation? Do we need to consider fencing? So, you know, it's just something to think about. We do not have the authority of those rules and regulations, but we administer this damage program on behalf of farmers that do have crop damage, so we can try to provide abatement methods. And there's different types of abatement, scare tactics, fencing, liquid applications. And then we also can provide the opportunity for reimbursement for some of the damage, maybe not all of it. So we will continue the administration of this program into the future. Yes, Charlie. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's through a state code. So they would have to open the code and it would go for state review. I don't really know what that would require as far as, I mean, we can make a suggestion, but this is in the state. This is through state statute. So it's not as easy as administering something on the county level. I can't hear.
Sorry. So we need to talk to Angie or Roman, somebody in the legislature to influence that.
Or even the wildlife services program.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Was
Yeah.
that Morgan Peck, by the way? One of them farmers? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to add a little comment on that. I know that the elk are meant to, they probably serve some positive purpose too, is restoring balance to the ecosystem. And I think they are probably generating revenue in a slight way by increasing tourism to the Clam Lake area. So it would be nice. It's not fair to have farmers bear the brunt and other people profit. But I hope that there'd be some, I don't know, we don't want to pit the elk against farmers and open land people, producers. But I hope we can figure something out short of, well, we can't reintroduce them here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think we have about 368 elk now. And the state's goal is around 1,300. So we are not even close to what they hope to have the herd become stabilized at. But I don't know that they anticipated the amount of expansion into some of the agricultural regions, because where they were relocated was national forest. But now these herds are expanding. They've created multiple new herds that have spread out. So there are herds now in Marengo and High Bridge area, and those animals are expanding. So yeah, you're right. It's an interesting conversation between the balance of it all for producers, for wildlife viewing. I see them all the time. They come on my property. I'm not a producer, so I don't have those financial burdens. But there's definitely challenges with figuring out how to balance it all. All right, Jim, can move us along.
I assume we're done with the reports then?
Yeah.
Then I think the next item on the agenda then would be, when I can find it. Service fees implementation.
Okay, so Ellie brought up the sheet that's in your packet, conservation service fee schedule. The items that are in the chart in the middle of the page, the Ashland County Agriculture Ordinance fees, those are all current fees. Those are already set. And then at the very top, the no-till drill, those are also current fees that we utilize. So that no-till drill, we charge $50 use fee for anyone in Ashland or Iron County. Plus we charge $8.50 per acre. So the machine has a little tracker on it that tracks the number of acres that are planted. And then in Bayfield and Douglas counties, we charge $75 one-time per use fee plus the $8.50 per acre. And then a couple of years ago, we started having requests for counties outside of our region. And the committee decided to assess a $100 fee plus the $8.50 per acre. Right now, like Tim mentioned, we're not getting a lot of use. Our fees, our management fees, repairs, fixes, storage are actually outweighing the revenue that we're bringing in. So I don't necessarily think it'd be a good idea to increase the fees because we're already not getting a lot of use. But we need to think about, do we want to keep this machine? And like Tim mentioned, it's an old machine. It was purchased in 2009 on a grant. And the repairs are becoming more and more costly to that machine. So do we need to think about budgeting in the capital budget at the county next year for replacing that machine? But that's not a conversation for right now. This basically is a discussion about the fees that we are currently charging and our proposed fees. So down at the bottom of the page are the proposed items. We realize that no-till drill is being used for planting deer food plots. So the primary use of the no-till is to be used on agricultural lands to seed areas without plowing or disking, to improve soil health, to reduce erosion and runoff. So one of the things that Tim and I have talked about is, do we charge a fee that's a higher fee for deer food plots? That's one question that we can discuss. We've also thought about implementing a service for farmers. Any farmer that is writing a nutrient management plan, they do have to conduct soil sampling, and they sample every 5 acres. So if you have a farm that's a 100-acre farm, they are going to have to pull 20 soil tests, and that takes about 15 minutes per test. And this has become a barrier for some of the producers to get a nutrient management plan written. So should or could we utilize our summer conservation technician or some of our staff to provide that as a service for our farmers? And we figured out a fee that we think would be fair, would be $10 per soil sample or per bag. And once again, if a farmer has 100 acres, they're sampling every 5 acres, that would be about 20 samples or 20 bags. And then we would also charge a mileage fee. So that would cover our hourly rate at staff time for that service. And then the third item down there on the bottom is a garden or food plot soil sampling service. And we don't get the request on this very often. We're talking maybe 1 or 2 people a year come into our office asking how to do garden soil sampling. So I don't anticipate that we would actually generate any revenue on this, because I'm not sure if any landowners would take advantage of it. But as long as we're talking about other types of soil sampling, we could include this. And we would basically charge a $50 service fee. And that would be for us to mail and submit the soil sample on behalf of the landowner. So we have a long list of different types of soil sampling fees, and we would go through whatever they're looking for. If they just want a basic garden sample test, this fee would cover our time, plus we would assess whatever the lab fee is and the time to submit that on their behalf.
I just want to make sure people know, like, for the farm soil sampling service, the fee would just be the labor fee. So the analysis itself, like when we send it to a lab, that fee is over and above this fee. So because a typical routine, actually a basic soil test is about $10 at the lab. So that's an addition to what we're proposing, just our time would be. So.
Correct. Thank you, Tim. And then the last item there is all cost sharing grants to landowners. So we have never charged fees in the past for anything like this. I've been told that our budgets are going to be tighter this year with the county. So this is an idea. It's not something that we have to do, but basically we receive at least $50,000 a year in cost share that goes out to landowners for conservation practices. We receive $30,000 a year in the segregated, that's our nutrient management money. And then there's also targeted runoff management grants or TRIM grants. We just applied for our very first one to implement a new manure pit in Ashland County next year. That's a $200,000 grant. So if we implemented an 8% fee on any cost share, that could generate a substantial amount of money for the department. And the way cost sharing would work is, let's say we have a $20,000 farm project that we're implementing with Farmer Smith. We would assess an 8% fee on that, $20,000. That would generate $1,600 for the department. The landowner would keep track of all of their expenses on that project, and this fee would be wound right into their project expenses. So then when they seek cost share reimbursement from our department, if they've contributed to that project, like if they've utilized some of their own equipment or they utilize their own labor, which many of our farmers do, they track all of that. And this $1,600 on this example would also be one of those fees that they would list on their list of expenses, and then they would get reimbursed 70% of the cost. So this fee, it's not like it would be assessed as a straight up $200 service fee. It would be enrolled on the cost share, which they could seek reimbursement for. So it would be included in their other expenses. Many departments are charging fees to do the engineering survey. Many departments are charging fees for the engineering design plans that we develop. I would like to stay away from individual service fees. But in the future, there may be less grant funding available. We're already having challenges with a couple of our grants that fund positions. This would be a way to start building additional revenue for the department to utilize in budgets in the future. So I would like to have some discussion about all of these items, about your thoughts and opinions. Like I said before, we've never been in the habit of charging fees. But as budgets get tighter and tighter and federal grant sources become less and less, we have to figure out ways to be creative to hold on to the programs that we have and the existing staff that we have.
Charlie.
I support all of this. It seems to make a lot of sense. We're not raising most of the fees. And that incorporating a new one in that way that the farmers end up getting reimbursed for it anyhow. So we're not passing it on to them really. This is kind of I'm not sure if my math skills have gone out the window or not, but on your farm soil sample service, it looks to me like it reads for mileage over 50, you're going to charge $70. For mileage under 51, you're going to charge $100. Am I looking at those symbols wrong, or is that a typo?
I put that in there to see if anyone would catch it.
Oh,
You're accurate. I need
good.
to change my symbols.
Okay, well, with that correction, then I will support this. And thank you for the work you did to find a way to get us a little more money.
I'm assuming that was a motion to accept the. Oh. Liz?
Well, I'm wondering how we would, what kind of communication would be around this because I think we'd have to be, I think we should be as straight as possible with the farmers and say, this is a new fee, but it's brought on by changes in the federal government, not reimbursing the county. And so we need to do these things, and we've been as careful as possible. I just want to make sure that that goes along with this if this is adopted.
Excellent question. There is a page in your packet called Service Fee Agreement. It's a draft document that was an example from Marathon County. So for any cost share agreement that we would assess the fee on, we would also review this with the landowner. And we would have it, so there's transparency with the landowner, and they would sign the agreement so that they understand that our department is charging 8% on their cost share project.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not exactly saying because the federal government has been reducing its payouts. And I think that's a fair thing because people are making decisions about how we're running our federal government at the local level as well.
I cannot attribute the federal government as the sole reason to do this. For example, health insurance might go up in the county. So that might cause the county to say, okay, you need to have a tighter budget this year. Perhaps there's other fees that go up or affect the county level budget where department heads are required to make cuts. Gas fees or gas cost. So federal grants being decreased are one revenue burden. Increasing costs of supplies and services are another burden, financial burden on a department. So I don't want to attribute it just to one individual burden or barrier. I think in the future, we need to get more creative on how do we utilize the funds we have and what sources of revenue are out there so that we have diverse revenue sources simply beyond relying on the few grants that we've relied on in the past. If you want me to put some specific wording in here, I could, but I don't want to just say it's only because of our federal grant programs. Because in a new administration, maybe the federal grants will be in plethora and we'll be in a better situation than where we are right now. And then I don't want to be inaccurate either. So maybe we need to have some wording in here based on budget constraints or increasing costs of services. I could include something like that.
I appreciate all that you said. It's clear and that there are there's always variables. Would you ever see taking this fee off? Once we put this fee on, is it on? Because kind of like even out if we do have, if prices go down for some reason, or would this be just to, from here forward, give us this new income stream to balance out when other things go awry? How do you see that playing?
I have a hard time believing we would take it away in the future. We have staff here that's had long tenures so far. We do not have a lot of turnover in our department. So I feel committed to maintaining the staff that we have. And the longer that you hold on to staff, the higher the salaries and the fees are associated with that staff. So I don't see our expenses lessening in the future. I also don't want to lose any staff positions. As far as reimbursement on staff positions, we probably get reimbursed 50% for the cost of our staff. So any person that's in a leadership or department head position is going to be continuously trying to seek revenues to maintain or ideally add staff. And if we don't figure out ways to create diverse revenue sources, it's going to be very difficult to continue doing that. It also creates a lot of pressure to maintain existing staff. We get reimbursed 50% from the state. So there's always that pressure to seek opportunities to maintain staff. And the more that you rely on grants, the greater the challenge that is. You're a grant writer. You understand what it's like. So if we can have other small ways to generate revenues in the department, that helps protect the programs and the people that we have. So would it be possible in the future to take away some of these service fees? Sure, anything is possible, right? You know, if Ashland County ends up somehow in a plethora of excess money, maybe we decide not to charge any fees in the future. And that could be open for discussion. This just simply provides a way to try to increase revenue opportunities.
Charlie?
I'm not sure I'm understanding this correctly, even based on Beth's question and your response. This fee is not going to reduce the amount of money available for the farmer's project, right? It's just going to add some administrative stuff that they then pay us out of that. So will that grant be increased to cover that fee, or will they actually lose money for their project of 8%?
There would be less money going on the ground for conservation, for cost sharing dollars.
But would it be because the grant volume of grant money ran out sooner because of the 8% fee, or would the farmer's project actually get less money than it would have gotten?
The second. So we get 50,000 a year in cost sharing that we administer with landowners. If we put 8% on that, now we have 4,000 less because that money is coming into our department for administration and staffing.
Okay.
So that would be 4,000 less a year
So-
at the 8%.
Okay, so it would reduce their gift.
It would reduce the overall amount of cost sharing dollars that is available to be put on conservation projects on the ground.
Right, I understand that part. But so say a farmer needed 20,000, he's eligible for 20,000 for the project.
Mm-hmm.
Then this 8% would come out of, so he'd get 18,000, whatever.
Yes,
Or
400.
he or she.
Yep.
Um,
And 1,600 would come to our department.
Okay, well, I'm glad I understand that. I still think, I feel like we should support it because it's getting harder and harder. And it's not like we're taking money away from them. We're just giving them slightly less.
Correct. And so in that scenario, the 20,000 for Mr. Smith's project, we would assess an 8% fee on the cost share, which would be $1,600. And when the farmer comes to get reimbursed for that cost share project, he's getting reimbursed 70% of that 1,600.
Oh,
So it's not a whole lot of money out of their pocket.
so it ain't 8% out of their pocket. It's 8%.
It's 8% being taken away from the cost sharing that could go onto an access road or a livestock fencing.
So he or she will get reimbursed 70% of that fee.
Yes,
Okay, that's quite a bit less. That's so complicated. I feel
it
like
is
calculus
complicated,
Fall in and out of comprehension with great regularity.
Yeah.
Well,
but
okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
to answer your question, does it take away from the overall pool of cost sharing dollars being implemented on the landscape? And the answer is yes, 8%.
But it
Now, the
helps-
landowner, it's not all coming out of the landowner pocket. Only 30% of that 8% is coming out of their pocket.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I did check with our core counsel. I've checked with legal counsel, because there are statutes that describe how you can utilize these cost share funds, and we cannot use this directly for staffing. So this would be part of our budget that is departmental support. Could pay for gas, it can pay for office supplies, equipment, all the other parts of the budget that do not get reimbursed. This cannot be strictly tied to staff. So we cannot charge a fee to a landowner for the staff time to do the engineering survey. But we can assess a fee on cost sharing in general, or any other grant in general.
Right. And you can't administer any grants if you don't have staff, so.
Exactly.
Liz?
Thanks. I just want to be clear that I do support the conservation projects, and I really support the staff here that are, I'm sure, doing a really good job. I also support reality of there being less money for these kinds of things. And I just don't want the takeaway from farmers to be that there's more taxing happening. We're getting, the government is growing, or especially the local government, when in reality, we are just responding to reality of, so that was what I was trying to get at, just to be clear. So I guess I really do appreciate creative thinking of diversifying income streams. It's the reality of what we're facing. There may be efficiencies in having a staff that's been retained in these projects. Maybe a few smarter decisions are made because of experience that might, in a way that's not seen, offset these growths. So I really value expertise. And so, not to be too long-winded, I would second Charlie's motion if we're still looking for that.
Well,
Charlie?
I'll make a motion then that we accept this service fee proposal, conservation fee schedule proposal in the packet.
And Liz is second. Any more discussion? I know Mary Jo did a pretty good job pointing out the specifics. It's a pretty important item here. Any other discussion? Is Gary Eater on the line by chance? Any comments? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to item G, sale of the no-till planner.
Did you still want to talk about this, or did you think you wanted to bring it to a different meeting?
Well, there has been some discussion about the cost of the no-sill or the no-till seeder. I did an average over the last 5 years. The machine has cost us about $6,500. So it's not balancing. We're not renting it enough to pay for the cost of storage, winter storage of it, and maintenance. So Tim and I have talked a lot about this. Do we need to sell the no-till planter and not have that available to farmers? Now, this week, he got 3 or 4 calls on it wanting to be used. So I'm confused about it. We've had the machine for 18 years, 17 years. Some years we've used it 15 to 20 times. The last couple years, we've used it 3 or 4 times a year. I know Pat Kinney on our previous committee, he was adamant about never selling the machine. He feels like it was an important service that we had to landowners. But just looking at the cost of it, the average over the last 5 years, I'm asking myself, how much money do we want to keep putting into the storage and maintenance of this piece of equipment versus how many people are actually utilizing it?
Charlie?
Sorry, is it doing what it was intended, which I thought was to show the importance of no-till farming on your soil health? Based on your historic rentals, obviously I don't want to have a machine for the feed plot growers. We don't want to break it there. But are people using no-till more now? And, I thought they would use that, go, okay, yeah, I'll buy one.
Right. So I can interject a little bit with that. So with our heavy soils, the no-till works beautifully under perfect conditions. And what happens right now in heavy soils, if there's enough moisture and you get it in within the right few days, you can get a good stand. If you don't hit that window, the clay dries out, your seed to soil contact doesn't work, it doesn't germinate. You just have this open little gully that the seed's just sitting there. And then what happens too is that your stand is competitive and it doesn't the new seeds aren't strong enough to compete with the current stand. So to get it to work right, you have to either, if you're doing a pasture land, graze it down to nothing, overgraze it so it looks like a table, and then seed it in with the right moisture and the right time. Soil has to be warm enough. And then it might take, or you have to use chemicals to kill anything that's there. Make sure it's, low, kill it, then seed it in. So those are some of the challenges with it. And the bigger farmers aren't going to use it. It's too small. They're just, they don't have the time to drive around circles with the machine. I guess, again, it has its benefits for sure, but I don't know if enough farmers, now that's been around long enough, guys know it, the guys have used it. And sometimes when till something in, you don't have to till it in again. That's part of the point of it. So I don't know if we're going to get enough guys using it to justify keeping it. And the reality is it's farm equipment. It's like everything else with farming.
So
There's
if you
many
were-
ways to lose money doing it.
If you
So
were forced to decide, just yes or no, is that thing doing anything of advantage for us and land conservation? Worth that?
I think this is why we're having the discussion, because personally, my gut is it's not doing enough. It's nice to have it. It's nice to put it on grants. It's nice to have it available to guys. But, again, there's, the fee isn't big. The guys I've talked to, the fee isn't a big deal. But I've had guys turn away because you have to have insurance liability that has to be turned into us before they can use it.
We don't need a static display showing the no-till farming exists. If it's not doing more than that.
Right. It's not. And then I know Peck has a no-till, he has his own no-till. There's a guy up in northern Bayfield County that just bought his own no-till. So yeah, so they use it. They want bigger ones. So, and again, I'm starting to get more concerned about the amount it's going to cost to upkeep it. Just it's a machine, it's been used, it's been well taken care of, but expenses, even if I'm paid for my job to fix it, it's still going to take time, and bearings cost money, blades cost money. There's some things that are wearing out on it that have to be replaced in the next couple of years. So I don't know if it's going to generate enough income to justify it. That's just my opinion.
I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about, is it and what we're doing with it now causing people to put conservation on the land, to not turn their soil over in a certain way. It doesn't sound to me like it's doing now what we intended. And obviously you've discovered some things that it's only useful in a certain window. And so one person would have it during that one window, and then
that's often what happens.
So
Yeah.
I would say do some other thing to to educate about no-till that doesn't involve us owning one, where our people are skeptical about whether it's doing that or not. And so,
And we have
Yeah.
some farmers that are, you know, coming back on maybe not a yearly basis, but on somewhat of a basis, but not very many farmers. There's enough farmers that I know that have used it once and it doesn't work the way they wanted it to. And it's a big investment. Like if you're throwing away seed, it doesn't matter how cheap the no-till is. It's seed's expensive. So, but I think it's a really good thing. I just don't know if it's justified to keep it. So.
Liz?
Thank you. You said it was costing $6,500. Do you mean per year now at this point or over the
No.
cost of
That's a 5-year average.
5 years? Okay. My feeling is for all the reasons that buying it or the tiller doesn't necessarily fulfill its full promise, that's the reasons why people wouldn't purchase one for themselves. So having one where the risk is shared is really useful. And I agree that having a static display of a potential, solution ain't great, but it beats doing nothing. And is this potentially a marketing issue? Could we put it a little bit on probation, like put it in every time that we have field days, say, by the way, our no-tiller is getting older and not pulling without enough rentals and interest. If you keep putting off, oh yeah, I'm going to try that 1 year. Don't put it off too long. It's on probation. And that might generate, because all we need are more rentals, right? The big issue is that it's beginning to cost money. And you're concerned that it'll start to cost more money in the future, but it hasn't hit that point yet. So my feeling is this is more of a communication issue than a crisis that would need us to get rid of the piece of equipment right now.
Sure, that's very possible.
Yeah, I would just say to try it, it said probation, try it another year and, push it to guys. And if they want to use it, great. If they don't, reevaluate next year and say, this is what we did and this is the outcome or not, and kind of go from there. It didn't cost us any money to begin with. It was all on a grant. So, but, if we're concerned about balancing budgets and it potentially is costing us more than we're making, and if we have a major breakdown on it, it takes a lot of, and again, the more we promote it, the more we use it, the more it's going to break down, and the more the expenses. It's just the nature of having equipment. So that would be the only other side of it. But I have no problem with having let's evaluate again. But it was just discussions that we've been having. So.
In your report for the upcoming year or however long this is gonna take effect until we talk about it again, does Lulich implement rent out that kind of equipment? If they do sometime,
That's a
you
good
get
question.
some
I don't know.
costs.
If they have one, it'd be
comparison.
maybe a smaller one, maybe a food plot one, but I don't know of them renting out a no-till. So.
Yeah, I don't know either, but be something to check up on and be able to report next time.
Sure.
All right, so then we'll table that discussion and move on to H, LWCD 2027 staff and support grant application, the DADCAP discussion only.
So this is basically just for your review. We submit a staffing and support grant application to DATCAP every year on April 15th. This is a copy of our application that was made this year. So total staffing request was $291,400. The state allocates money based on your population size. and based on what the governor has appropriated to DAT cap. And this year, our reimbursement is 184,000. Last year, it was 154,000. So I don't anticipate getting anywhere near that amount, but that is what we would be eligible for. And then on the back page of that, it shows what we requested for cost sharing and our segregated funds for nutrient management. So typically we request $50,000 for cost share. That's the Land and Water Resource Management Plan structural funds. I've requested 70,000 for next year and 30,000 for our nutrient management. The other pages there are supporting documentation on what our expenditures were, how much we receive in money from non-county sources, and then a breakdown of staff that are supported by different types of funding sources. So this is a standard application I make every single year. The form never changes. And I basically just wanted to inform you of the fact that that application was made. Charlie?
Does Jim need to sign that?
No.
Okay.
And that's it for that.
Okay, moving on to I, environmental impacts of long-term weather trends.
So this was a long-standing agenda item that George Bousset had requested a couple of years ago. I don't have any information on this, and I guess I would encourage, unless someone feels that they're going to want to speak on this topic at every meeting, I would ask permission that we remove this as a long-standing agenda item. Typically, we only list agenda items that have action or need to have some sort of discussion for the committee.
I'm in agreement with that. Any other discussion? Charlie?
Yeah, I would say that we've kind of put that, and Dan's here to attest, we kind of have that in the background of everything when we're doing even the comprehensive plan and whatnot. So I would want this to be more event driven than a standard item all the time. So I support that too. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, number 7, agency, NRCS and staff reports.
Okay, we don't have anyone from NRCS here. And a couple of our staff had field visits this afternoon, so they had to leave. So we'll briefly just go over a couple items if there is anything additional on staff reports. Tim covered quite a bit about the programs in our annual report, but Tim, if you want to give any other highlight from your staff report, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think what's in my report is what's been happening over the springtime, just getting guys and sign up for nutrient management. And the limited with farmland preservation right now, no-till, what's happening. So nutrient management is the big thing right now. And then at the bottom, I had kind of a proposal of like what that soil testing thing would look like. So I'm also going through the grazing academy, they're calling it, so I can get to be certified to write grazing plans again. And there's a big growing need for that right now. The federal government's really pushing regenerative farming. So, and this is one of the things that they want more on the ground is grazing plans. So.
Thank you. Seth?
Yep. So as I had mentioned earlier, with the cost share project stuff, one of the carryover projects was completed last week, or I guess maybe 2 weeks ago now, but the reimbursement is getting filed this week. So all the carryover money from 2025 will be spent, and we're starting to spend some of the 2026 money already. That was a project that Ryan and Bob Reamer had done for an access road. And then the other cost share carryover project was with Todd Burweger. So part of that is access road and livestock fencing in kind of a critical area where there's a intermittent kind of, not really a stream, but ephemeral gully situation. So fencing them out and getting a nice crossing in there, as well as some grade stabilization. Mary Jo had mentioned briefly earlier that we applied for a targeted runoff management grant, trim through the DNR. That was completed earlier this spring. We did the soil investigations as well, so that'll be hopefully a NRCS and county joint project, depending on the funding needs. If the trim grant doesn't completely cover it, investigate some other sources of funding such as NRCS. Other site visits as requested, and projects that are in designed for supplemental cost sharing, depending on the cost of that Burweger project. Been working on natural flood management stuff with Ellie quite a bit. Couple trainings and well testing program that was conducted this spring had good turnout, actually a little bit more than what we've seen in the recent years. And that was a targeted mailing to the town of Agenda, but open to all county residents. So that was good to see. And then water quality sampling, kind of an ongoing project. And then I presented at the Wisconsin Land Information Association conference just here in Ashland. So that was a different little highlight to my staff report. So are there any questions on that stuff?
Thanks, Seth. Scott and Ellie had to take off, so we'll do Scott's report. Both of them have been doing extensive work in our schools, providing conservation education programs. Scott has a pretty lengthy staff report there that you can view, and if you have any questions, you can reach out directly to him. But he's been gearing up for summer. So we just hired our conservation technician, Edith Kruger, and she started last Friday. So she will be doing most of our boat landing monitoring and education this summer. She'll be assisting Scott with invasive species projects, conducting early detection lake surveys on at least a dozen lakes and the Chequamegon Bay this summer. Scott also listed a bunch of information about this year's tree and shrub sale and some of the other youth education programs that he's been working on. And then Seth, if you want to move on to Ellie's staff report. Ellie is our watershed program coordinator. So she's funded by a Great Lakes Restoration Grant, and she works in the Marengo watershed on natural flood management projects. So we have a $300,000 grant that we're working with a private landowner in the headwaters of the Brunsweiler River. He will be implementing 2 to 3 conservation practices beginning this summer through next summer to try to reduce the amount of water that flows off the land during spring runoff and large storm events, which causes hazards to road and bridge infrastructure and stream bank erosion in the Brunsweiler. This project will also help improve overall water quality in the Bad River and ultimately in Kakagan Sloughs and Lake Superior. So Ellie's been working on a combination of education, outreach, and also the conservation technical work through that grant project. Seth is doing the engineering design on that. And so the two of them have been collaborating together on field visits, landowner interaction, permitting, surveys, and ultimately engineering design. And then if you want to move on to mine. I have a couple things highlighted there, mostly the grant work. So there's been quite a few grant reimbursements requested. We did have the large application for the targeted runoff management grant for 225,000. We have not heard back on award for that, but we did receive a pre-review and we scored fairly high. And if we utilize the funding rankings from last year, we should get funded for that. That would be for the Richardson manure pit, which will be implemented next year. We submitted our state DAC application, which I just reviewed with you. The biggest thing that has been a funding challenge this spring is our National Association of Conservation Districts grant. So we applied for our 5th grant back in December. This has been an annual grant that we've received to fund our agricultural technician position and our whole ag program. Given our administration right now, the grant awards were supposed to be made in January and then March, and now we've been notified they will not be made until sometime this summer. So our grant from last year has ran out, and we scrambled this spring to sign a contract with the NRCS to provide 1 year of funding for us to be able to continue implementing technical assistance with our producers in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron County. So we started last week working on deliverables that are focused on what the NRCS is most interested in. And we're trying to bide time until we hear about the awards for that National Association of Conservation Districts grant again, which would be 100% reimbursed. And it would provide all of the funding, training, travel, and assistance that we need to keep that program fully functional. There's been a number of other items going on, projects. So those are all listed in the report. I'm not going to go through everything there, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions really. Just, I was wondering if on our next, if at every meeting we could play one of those LCC training videos till we cycle through the whole thing, and then just keep that on repeat if those are like only 10 or 15 minutes long.
I did want to do that. And I know for this meeting, I'm already going to get reprimanded for the amount of time we spent. So I removed that from the agenda.
Yeah.
But I will start doing that.
Okay. And then I wanted to, I like what Tim's doing. And then so I've been thinking about the value of, I mean, the field days is great, but it only covers one part of our mission. So if we could have field days and maybe even just a conservation and general days, but I don't know what kind of turnout that would elicit. So I just want to drop that in your ear. And then lastly, I think we should talk about elk and then do towards doing some sort of action to, as Beth said, not create a schism between the farmers and elk and unfair cost sharing. I personally think that just upping the damage would be the cheapest thing you could do. Just let the elk wander and let people claim the damage and go verify it and pay it. Otherwise, you're going to be talking about bazillions of dollars for other solutions. And I think we should, and that's my opinion, but I think we should talk about it and then take action on some plan we find reasonable to all of us. And that's all I have. Thank you, Jim.
Hey, Charles, I'll just kind of fill in with that. The field days are specific to the grant that Douglas County is administering. So the field days are specific to what their criteria is. We could have other field days to do other things, but it's kind of specific to nutrient management stuff and from the preservation. We can talk about what we want, but so that's kind of how we've catered to it. The second thing with the elk, there's some farmers that absolutely love the elk. I'd be one of them. And some other farmers that are close by me that absolutely hate them already because they're wrecking stuff and they're in it and they don't want nothing to do with them. but I want them to keep on my property, but so I already know that there's not a huge elk population yet, and it's already concerning for some farmers.
Yeah.
So there's already tension there. So I love them, but
And I
There
like,
it is.
and back to your point, James, forgive me, back to your point about the field days. I like the engagement. I wish there was a way we had a day of the year where Ashland County could come and engage about conservation, whatever issues. I just don't know if that's a big honor for most people, or if we spent the time to create a day. Well, I mean, I guess we could experiment. If people come, then yay. If they don't, we don't do it. But you guys have plenty to do, and maybe that's just not the best spending of your time either.
Any more questions, comments, concerns? Then it looks like we're gonna schedule a next meeting date.
Okay, that is a question for the committee. We've always just sort of scheduled dates every couple months out. But I guess I would like to ask, is there a preferred day of the week? Or would you prefer to meet every other month on like the second Tuesday? So that it's more well-known when we're meeting? I guess, what is your preference? Is there any preference? Day of the week or time of the day, or like a set schedule? David?
Regular
County board
county
meeting,
board
yeah.
meetings are on Tuesday. So I'm gonna try to stay away from that one.
What you're recommending is typically what we've done.
Right.
We meet every 2 or 3 months,
Right.
and there's usually business that needs to be handled.
Something comes up, you notify us.
I agree. I have no real preference except like, I think it's the third Tuesday of the month is the regular board, county
Right,
board meetings. So yeah, I'm pretty flexible.
I like the last Wednesday of whatever month at 9 AM. That's good for me, but I'm flexible too.
And Beth, is there a preferred day for you?
No, I have no strong opinion on this for a change.
And any preferred time of the day for you?
For me personally, no, not really. And it is, like Dave was saying, I may not be able to make all.
Okay, with that heard, coming up in July and August is going to be our budget for 2027. So I will be working on the budget in July. So by the end of July would be a good time to meet. That's a couple months out from now. And hearing Charlie's recommendation, how about Wednesday, July 29th?
Sounds like we're all in agreement at this time, so next scheduled meeting date will be Wednesday, July 29th, 9 AM.
Yes.
Very good. And can I have,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
the motion has been made to adjourn. Can I have a second? Charlie seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.